Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. When it comes to crossovers, IDW Publishing seems to have found itself something of a niche, mixing franchises that few would have conceived of, much less anticipated. Such is the case for today's entry, as I'm taking issue with My Little Ponies / Transformers, where G1-style bots meet 2010's iterations of the magical equines. And yes, I know Linkara did a review of this a few weeks ago, which I've held off from watching to avoid copying anything. Any similarities in jokes or descriptions are going to be purely coincidental. This isn't a competition or anything, so I'll ask you to give this video a chance, and then decide that Linkara's is better. Let's begin with issue number 1, and see if these comics make us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover is nicely done, with some foreboding Decepticons in the background, Twilight Sparkle apparently entering the Avatar state, and Optimus reaching for the Matrix of Leadership, which seems to have attracted the other main ponies. Little known fact, once activated, the Matrix also functions as a bug zapper. Each issue has 2 stories, with changing creative teams, so heads up for that. There are also character guides, which will be useful for those like myself who are unfamiliar with MLP. Writer James Asmus, with artists Tony Fleeks and Lauren Perry, bring us Transformation is Magic. Oh, is this also a crossover with Beast Machines?
I am transformed.
We begin in Equestria, where an irate comic reader gives us some meta-humor, nitpicking the continuity of a nonsense crossover that's only meant to be fun, and I bet probably unable to wait to record his opinions on his YouTube show. A storm starts brewing from a nearby mountaintop, instigated by the Changelings, minions of the evil Queen Chrysalis. They're trying a new spell to reach out to a world of fellow changelings who possess power unlike what they have on their world. But of course, the rain, lightning, and dark swirling clouds aren't exactly subtle.
I know we've never attempted this before, but I certainly wasn't expecting it to broadcast such obvious red flags.
Also, you probably should not have posted on Instagram, "Feelin' cute might destroy Equestria later." We go to Cybertron and a fight over a faulty space bridge, which the Decepticon Shockwave has detected reaching another dimension. There's this panel of Bumblebee essentially car-punching Starscream in the face, and I just find that simply delightful. However, Shockwave's data collection has caused both factions to be pulled into the sky by pink electricity. The Robo-Rapture is real! It's Judgment Cycle! Repent! Repent for your 404 errors and AI-generated image side hustle! Meanwhile, Twilight Sparkle has arrived with some honor guards to stop whatever Chrysalis has planned.
After all the trouble you've caused, we won't wait to find out. Today's forecast was mostly sunny with mild temperatures. You went and made the meteorologists cry, you monster! Beams of energy shoot out of the space bridge, and on top of giving me Mighty Morphin Power Rangers flashbacks, it heralds the arrival of the Transformers, scattering to different locations across the planet. Realizing they're alive, Twilight zips off, while Chrysalis becomes acquainted with Megatron, the two quickly finding each other of the same mind. Bee and Optimus Prime plummet toward the ground, and with Windblade unable to reach them, Prime tries to pull his little buddy in, take the brunt of the impact to spare him some damage. Fortunately, they're saved by Twilight's magic, catching them and safely setting them on a cliff. The bots thank her for the assist, and even offer to change into vehicle mode to avoid scaring the locals. That's not exactly going to work here, but hey, most ponies are not the judgmental type. Prime explains that his kind aren't magical, and while Autobots are friendly, others have arrived that would destroy this world's peace, as we see Chrysalis and Megatron in tank mode, having solidified their alliance. The teenager working at the Wendy's drive-thru window is in for a big surprise. Shine Like a Diamond is written by Ian Flynn, with art by Jack Lawrence and Luis Antonio Delgado. Starscream has decided to conquer Equestria for himself, and after shooting up some of the block, forced Rarity and some of her employees in Manhattan to outfit him with his classic Emperor garb.
This is bad comedy.
Rarity humors him a bit, saying healthy subjects reflect on how good a king they have, but it has no effect on Scream, only providing a bit of a distraction for RC to zoom in with a flying kick. So far, the best parts of this story have been Starscream getting clocked in the faceplate. Not sure if that says more about the comic or me. It only takes another hit before he retreats.
Are you all right, my little pony?
Okay, that is not nearly as forced as it could have been. Felt totally organic. Nice job. RC starts picking up broken scaffolding, assessing nearby damage out of habit before the two make introductions. Rarity, a fashion designer operating 3 locations, piles on compliments for RC's combat skills, while still able to quickly become light-handed after the fight.
You changed shape before my very eyes and drove off that ruffian effortlessly. You're positively marvelous. I don't know about all that. Starscream's more of a poltroon than a ruffian, a scalawag at best.
Rarity mentions some of her own adventures facing monsters and demigods, though admits having help from her friends, something RC relates to. The meeting of such kindred spirits is interrupted as Starscream returns, with Thundercracker and Skywarp. When they open fire, RC tells the pony to find cover, while she tries to make every shot count. But Rarity has a better idea, magically creating a shield to deflect the Seeker's attacks. After Thundercracker is hit, presumably landing somewhere unpopulated, the Fembot draws the 2 remaining jets closer, so Rarity can snag them in the giant cape, screwing up their flight pattern. After Skywarp nopes out, Starscream is left crashing outside the city.
Man, things haven't been the same since deregulation.
And the 2 fast friends celebrate with a fist bump, or hoof bump in this case. Issue 2's cover features Grimlock and Spike, the pony's dragon friend, fire-breathing on some Decepticons. Pretty simple and looks fun. Inspiring by writer Ian Flynn and artists Sarah Pitry Durocher and Joanna Lafuente, begins with Spike composing a letter to Twilight Sparkle about how he ended up in the Autobot ship the Ark, and after all the adventures he's been on, he finds himself out of his element.
Couldn't find bathroom. Had to improvise. Hope those glowing pink cubes weren't important.
With other Autobots away on various missions, only Grimlock remains as defense, and Spike is not only instantly dazzled by his stature, but also his confidence to fight for the base in the event of an attack. And what do you know, that's when the Constructicons show up. So Grimlock transforms to Dino mode to crush them. The little lizard is eager to help, but as the metal T-Rex starts stomping the enemies, he decides to hold back just now. Grim says that even together, the cons are no match for him, so they combine to form Devastator.
Grimlock and Grimlock's big mouth. Me, Grimlock, need download 4th wall awareness widget, so not make this mistake again.
As the Dinobot is clearly losing the advantage, Spike begins realizing his new hero simply isn't lulling the behemoth into a false sense of security. He darts back into the ship, reads some Cybertronian manuals, the convenient English versions, and hits a few keys on the terminal to activate the Ark's thrusters, and causing the component bots to fall apart. They retreat and Grimlock commends the dragon as a mighty warrior, but Spike doesn't think his speed reading and button pressing amounts to taking on a giant in a fist fight. Grim disagrees, pointing out how he was smart enough to learn a new language on the fly. Fly, 'cause, dragon, and inventive enough to weaponize the engines.
Also, you breathe fire. Me, Grimlock's other friend named Spike, just whiny human teenager. Definitely put Dragon Spike ahead a few points.
With all his potential, he'll grow bigger and stronger, which is inspiring to Grimlock, a compliment that overwhelms Spike with joy. Sam Maggs writes the next story, alongside the art of KCW Collar and Joanna Lafuente, in They Eat Ponies, Don't They?, which begins with the taping of the latest episode of Pinkie Pie's cooking show, Preppin' with Pinkie. I considered making a cannibal joke, but I decided it would have been in bad taste. Her guest is the newest Autobot, Gage, here for some cultural exchange, given the new bots in town. And I guess the enemy attack is being postponed, so Megatron can get an oil change or something. For Equestria, Pinkie will make cupcakes, while Gage represents Cybertron with an iron-filling casserole with energon reduction. The audience looks like they just watched someone get surgery, but the hostess avoids hurting his feelings. A space bridge appears on set, and from it walks Shockwave, who finds logic in this cultural exchange, so will experiment to discover the right amount of ponies needed to fuel a Decepticon. He changes his hands into a cheese grater and a whisk, which don't seem to be the most logical cooking tools to start with, unless he just really wants their deaths to be slow and painful. Shockey is momentarily stopped when he takes a dish towel and a cookie sheet to the cranium as the audience flees. He changes his hands to a spatula and a spork. I'm not sure if I should feel honored or indignant. Gage narrowly saves Pinky from getting sliced, then knocks Shockwave back while disarming him, and the pony tripping him up. With the enemy disoriented, they each clobber him with a skillet and send him back through the space bridge, to the applause of the remaining audience. Since they have hooves, shouldn't that sound effect be clop? Anyway, after a short while, our heroes close the show by tasting each other's dishes, which doesn't seem like a good idea for either of them. The cultural exchange continues when they discover both their worlds have very similar procedures for pumping the stomach. Issue 3's cover features Fluttershy seeming awfully cozy with Laserbeak, Ravage, and the more obscure cassette Beast Box, alongside some mechanical butterflies. This community theater production of Snow White took a really unusual turn. Pet Sounds is written by James Asmus, with artists Jack Lawrence and Luis Antonio Delgado, which begins with Flutter having tea and cupcakes with antagonist-turned-ally Discord, a chimera with reality-twisting powers. Soundwave crashes just outside the house, taking in the illogical alien landscape, and Fluttershy needs reassurance that her chaotic friend isn't trying to mess with her. I'm afraid even I couldn't concoct something that bizarre. He said the same thing when Equestria discovered ice cream with bacon. A bunch of scared woodland creatures rush into Fluttershy's house, and she tries calming them down, saying that this visitor may appear scary, but probably isn't totally bad. She opens the door as Soundwave has begun Operation Scout and Secure, ejecting Frenzy, Ratbat, Ravage, and Laserbeak, making her giddy that he's brought pets. Anyone who goes to parties and spends all their time with the resident dog, meet your spirit animal. Spirit pony. She flies out holding some of the wildlife to make introductions, happy to befriend a fellow animal lover. A scan from Soundwave identifies her as a non-threat. Her slithery friend is another matter, however, and the bot immediately attacks Discord, who I think might be doing a Trogdor impression. Target engaged! A proposal already? But they only just met. The cassettes are tasked with capturing his allies, so they advance on Flutter.
What is this place? What are its defenses? Why does everything smell like lavender? In that order, Equestria, various forms of magic coupled with moral lessons, and a complicated Glade promotional deal through S.C. Johnson. Discord confounds Wave with various robotic forms, while Fluttershy has apparently explained the history of her and her friend's powers, then notices Ravage has a snout injury. Fortunately, she has a cream for that, which she applies to the battle damage of the other animal bots. Quickly frustrated by this, Frenzy smacks the salve out of her hooves and knocks her down, which makes Discord change targets and tactics. Big mistake detected.
Are you talking about Frenzy, or did you just happen to spot James Tiny in the Fourth nearby, writing another DC book? Despite attempts to welcome them with kindness, Fluttershy figures the cassette is someone who thinks bully tactics and malice produce respect, when caring for others is really the key, and as Discord points out, this pony cares for all of them. With a snap of his claw, he makes the animals mechanical, unleashing them on Soundwave, while Ratbat, Ravage, and Laserbeak turn on Frenzy. When he tries reminding them of their friendship, Flutter perks up, asking if that's really what they care about. Unquestionably, friendship superior. Careful, Fluttershy. This might be a trap to help him move when it's really inconvenient for you. She says they can start over without fighting and help the Decepticon and his crew find their way. Or Discord could change them into pretty little ponies. After a moment, they call a truce. Frenzy apologizes, and the critters are returned to normal. Megatron contacts his lieutenant, saying they've secured a location to begin siphoning the planet's energy, and wants him there. Soundwave confirms the orders, but decides to wait a bit before leaving, watching his underlings play with their new friends.
Also, have you found anyone willing to help us move next Wednesday?
The Flying Foxtrot from scribe Sam Maggs, with Priscilla Tramontano and Luis Delgado on art, sees Rainbow Dash relaxing in the clouds with an apple until disturbed by the arrival of Windblade. I like your wings. I like your wings. Enough to completely forget you nearly killed me just to get my attention. Didn't they meet in the first issue? Or did the Autobot immediately take off without making introductions? Or is that Dash's twin? Whatever. They each boast about being the fastest around and agree that they can only settle it with a race, which has other competitors, at least one other who seems to hail from Cybertron. This has drawn a lot of ponies in attendance, including Princess Twilight Sparkle. You'd think she'd be coordinating with Optimus, preparing for an attack from the enemy or something. I guess Soundwave was so moved by friendship, he emailed our heroes a timetable on when they were going to attack. Turns out it gave them ample leisure time before a catastrophic conflict. The race begins, with the only two competitors that matter taking to trash talk, showing off some moves, but Windblade starts to take the lead. That is until Dash catches up, motivated by equestrian pride, not wanting to disappoint her friends and all that. There's a thunderous rumble, caused by several Decepticon Seekers, led by Misfire, who wants to prove their overall superiority on two worlds, as they ready their weapons. Rainbow Dash finds them hilarious, despite Windblade's warning of how dangerous they are. After narrowly avoiding some missiles, the pony flies her rival through the Flyin' Foxtrot, starting with pretending to be slower than you really are. Misfire orders his minions to fire Heat Seekers now that their targets are too close to evade, but they look a lot further away than just a few panels ago when they evaded that first volley of missiles, or were those not Heat Seekers? Moving on, one goes left, the other goes right, and more projectiles are fired, with the heroines lingering a bit as they close in, before they zoom past the Seekers, who end up hit by their own ordnance. The cons are defeated, the race is over, and both our victors agree to call it a tie. So is that trophy going to be cut down the middle, or will each of them get one with an asterisk on the plaque? I'd like to think that despite this being a story about flying, they intentionally chose not to reuse Starscream to face up against Rainbow Dash, because the good folks at Death Battle already showed us how that bout would go. Issue 4's cover is an homage of some kind, but I just don't know what. Probably from a few things at once. Leave it in the comments if you know. Still looks really cool. Ian Flynn with artists Sarah Pitry Durocher and Joanna LaFuente bring us Strength in Numbers, where Applejack's apple orchard is infested by Insecticons. She tries hitting them, shoving them, and spraying them with water. It leaves the apples in the bin or else it gets the hose again. Nothing seems to work, and even though there's other life to consume, the bugs seem to prefer the delicious, nutrient-rich fruit. Who knew they had taste buds? As the farmer tries looking up a useful deterrent in her books, Discord appears, hinting at his familiarity with the Decepticon invaders from the previous issue. Applejack doesn't quite get it, but asks him to help out. He kind of does, pulling an Avengers Endgame and portaling in the whole Apple family, who charge the bug bots on a 2-page spread.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our Honey Crisp!
Roping, stomping, the clan works together to subdue the bugs. Even an elderly pony, whose name I imagine must be Granny Smith, gets a victory all her own. She tries waving her hooves frantically to shoo Bombshell away, unknowingly knocking one of his own mind-controlling Cerebro shells back onto him, so when she tells him to leave her alone, he has no choice but to obey. He's also going to call more often, especially around the holidays. The Mechanopests retreat after having had enough of being outwitted by mammals 1/12 their size.
Save yourself! Your firearms are useless against them!
The Apple family celebrates their victory with a ham-fisted pun, while Discord just chills over how entertaining the day has been. That brings us to the fittingly titled Finale, written by James Asmus with Tony Fleeks and Lauren Perry on art. Co-ruler Princess Cadence is told that each site where a strange visitor was reported has been cleared out. According to the Autobots, that means the Decepticons are up to something. Specifically, as we find out, blasting a hole in the castle wall. The cons are joined by Queen Chrysalis, her changeling minions, and a couple legally distinct Godzillas. Megatron demands every mystical item in the castle, so it can be converted into magic-enhanced Energon, which will leave Equestria drained of its strongest defenses, so Chrysalis can conquer for the changelings. Cadence retorts that she's not alone, as she has true friends. Unleash the giant radioactive David Schwimmer! Twilight walks in with Optimus Prime, who tries politely asking Megs and his forces to leave, which of course doesn't work, so more Autobots and ponies, and Discord, pour out of the portal.
Transform and trot out!
Till every pony are one!
You'll never melt my icy heart.
It becomes an epic 2-page free-for-all. Lasers, robo-punches, explosions, pies to the faceplate. But it's trivial to Megatron, who orders Shockwave to get what magic he can, since even a fraction will make them unstoppable on Cybertron. Their plan this whole time has been to corner the child's birthday party entertainment market. The scientist is stopped by numerous equestrians, led by Cadence, alongside Bumblebee, who takes time to compliment the kingdom's color palette and how much Cybertron could use some beautification. Shockwave takes the chance to shoot him for abandoning his survival instincts, but he's deflected by Cadence's shield, who shows how good they are at surviving, and that while they prefer peaceful resolutions, they're all too capable of fighting back, blasting him out of the castle. Prime tries to get Megatron to give up, since this world did nothing to him, but the despot brushes that off as a plea for compassion, which he considers a weakness.
Now you see that evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.
Twilight snaps back as she corks his cannon with an orange cap, a clear nod to what certain Megatron toys in the US had to have in place by law. Neat reference. There's nothing weak about compassion, and there are plenty of reinforcements on the way, enough to make the villain glad the ponies can be forgiving to those who show penitence. Megs confers with Chrysalis if she underplayed their odds, but the Mad Queen says they only need to finish their raid quickly, so thinks there's no real threat. Otherwise, as the only master of changeling magic, she'll simply refuse to reopen the bridge between worlds and let the robots battle each other on Equestria for the next millennia. She's forgetting that irate Transformers fans will complain endlessly, which will make Hasbro backpedal within 2 months. But her backup plan is dashed away as the space bridge has been repaired, and the battle is joined by Grimlock and an exosuit from the original TF movie, piloted by
Spike, of course.
I get that reference.
Chrysalis tells her minions to retreat, abandon their Decepticon allies lest they be dragged to their world. So I gotta ask why these two are intentionally flying toward the portal when Megatron grabs her. He was promised power and can't fathom what magic the ponies wield that could stop them. Twilight Sparkle says it's friendship, as her magic is apparently enhanced by the Matrix of Leadership in a blast that sends the cons back through the portal and Cybertron.
No!
Funny story, the script called for me to say yes, but I gave it a little twist.
With peace restored, Optimus apologizes for the harm brought to Equestria. Twilight says that someone's choices matter more than their origins, and she's thankful her new allies chose kindness. After a farewell party, every bot, both Autobot and Decepticon, are back on their own world. So Prime destroys the faulty space bridge that led to all this. Gage asks if that was really necessary, since the ponies were so nice to them, but the leader says that when you make a good friend who enriches your life, even if your time together is short, they'll always be with you. He had to say something inspirational. He's Optimus Prime. He can't get one-upped on stirring moral speeches by a mini-horse. Elsewhere, the Decepticons are recovering from their trip, with no magic recovered for their troubles. Shockwave did, however, manage to obtain the coordinate data he'd originally sought, and the comic ends with his sequel-baiting request to pursue the possibility of bringing Equestria's magic to them. That was My Little Pony / Transformers, Friendship in Disguise. A fun, breezy, wholesome read. I was already an adult when the revamped MLP came out. I've seen 2 episodes, and while I thought it was fine for what it was, I didn't get sucked into it like some people did. Even so, I can't deny this series has a great deal of charm. The first page shows the creators are aware of how this could be perceived by some, and preemptively dismissing certain inevitable critiques. I can see why some might be put off by the premise, as the ponies seem to largely deal with morality tales and relatively low-stakes slice-of-life conflicts. Yeah, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but again, I was not an avid viewer. And the Transformers have always been action first, life lessons third or fourth. But some mistake that action for seriousness. It was always a very silly show where ferocious villains could be easily distracted, or there was the time the Autobots ended up on a world where they were literally toy-sized compared to the inhabitants. They're lucky that planet's equivalent to Hasbro didn't find out about Cybertron and convert it into their own planetary toy factory. Yet lack of knowledge of the Ponyverse didn't feel at all like a hindrance. No real need for backstory exposition or filler to catch anyone up on what happened in the show or the related ongoing comic. You get who these characters are largely through their actions, and while some of the dialogue could be viewed as sappy or trite, there is an earnestness that makes you feel they actually believe in what they say about friendship and kindness. Cynical as I can be, it is genuinely good to see something like this done as well as it is. The only criticism I could lob is that the continuity isn't exactly airtight. You can hand-wave that Megatron and Chrysalis were busy plotting and planning while some of the events took place around the same time as each other. It leaves breathing room for tea parties and races, and this is all in good fun, so fine. Yet there were moments, particularly in Flying Foxtrot, where some visual details felt left out, like a step in the sequence was skipped. Maybe because it was a bit more action-heavy than the previous stories, with a lot to cram in its second half. Then there's the idea that the space bridge was malfunctioning until Spike and Grimlock fixed it, and yet we saw Shockwave use it just fine. The overall timeline isn't clear, since some ponies seem more aware of their new visitors than others, and since they were pulled through, one wonders how Spike ended up on the Ark, or did he just not watch where he was flying? Not to mention, the bots were plucked from Cybertron, and the Ark is on Earth. Other than that, the pacing was done pretty well. Each issue has 2 stories, much like 2 episodes per half hour of the show. We also didn't get to see Gage's alt mode, but that's not a big deal. If it wouldn't have been too easy a victory, I'd have thought that Discord was powerful enough to take all the Decepticons on himself. But maybe I'm overestimating his powers because he's voiced by John Delancey.
I'm immortal again! Omnipotent again!
The art is really well done, nicely replicating the 2010 series and altering the classic G1 designs to make the bots fit in. They look more rounded, more bends to their lines, instead of the rigid blockiness the original show had. Expressions excellently convey what characters are feeling when they're happy, devastated, or possibly conflicted. At least that's how Fluttershy looked to me just before the big fight, like maybe she had reservations about fighting the cassettes she had just made nice with. Even if the pony designs aren't the most complicated, there are some really cool scenes, like one of them spiraling around Megatron's blast. I'm a sucker for classic cartoon absurdity, like Pinkie Pie popping out of Soundwave's deck, something that really works here more than in a tale that takes itself seriously. And much like with one of the many alternate covers, you just gotta love a good old-fashioned pie-in-the-face gag. Just look at her expression, taking so much joy in spitting on Shocky's logic. She's an agent of chaos and loving every minute. Most of the variants are relevant to one of the featured stories, but then there's this one of Prime and Twilight seeming to share gazing at the night sky, which didn't come up, but is nice to look at nonetheless. This miniseries manages to balance action and sweetness without feeling too saccharine, showing that 2 very different properties can work together very well. It's genuinely funny and has a number of Easter eggs for those who know their Transformers lore. It won't be for everyone, but maybe it's the kind of wholesomeness we need more of these days. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.